Ladies and gentlemen, we start with a key legislative move which has sparked fireworks in Parliament today and will have a direct impact on Jammu and Kashmir. These are key bills which could shape the future of Jammu and Kashmir post the abrogation of Article 370 and 35. They are the Reservation Amendment Bill and the Reorganization Amendment Bill 2023. They have cleared their first hurdle today. The Lok Sabha passed the two bills and it will now be tabled in the Rajya Sabha. Home Minister Amitabh Mattoo tabled the bills in Parliament. He termed these as historic, saying that under Prime Minister Modi, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is something that is becoming a reality, especially for those who suffered atrocities in Jammu and Kashmir for the last 70 years.
मैं जो बिल लेकर आया हूं, जो विधेयक लेकर इस महान सदन की सहमति प्राप्त करने के लिए मैं खड़ा हुआ हूं, वो बिल 70 सालों से जिन्हों को अन्याय हुआ है, जो अपमानित हुए और जिनकी अनदेखी की गई है, वो सभी लोगों को न्याय दिलाने का बिल है, उनको अधिकार दिलाने का।
Now, under the Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill, reservation will be provided to scheduled tribes, scheduled castes and socially and economically backward classes in government jobs and admission in professional colleges. Another key feature of this bill sees the phrase weak and underprivileged category being replaced by the words other backward classes. Now, the other legislation which got the Lok Sabha's nod today is the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Amendment Bill that is very, very significant politically. Under this, the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir will now have 90 seats. Earlier, the erstwhile State Assembly was composed of 87 members, which included from Ladakh. The allotted seats for Pakistan-occupied Kashmir continues to remain 24.
नई जो स्कीम बनी है उसमें जम्मू में पहले 37 सीटें थी, 37 सीटें थी, ये भी न्याय का सवाल है। जम्मू में पहले 37 सीटें थी, अब 43 हुई है, 43 हुई है। कश्मीर में पहले 46 थी, अब 47 हुई है और पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर की 24 सीटें, क्योंकि वो हमारा है, हमने रिजर्व रखी है मान्यवर, 24 सीटों को। इस तरह से पहले 107 सीटें जम्मू कश्मीर विधानसभा में थी, अब 114 सीटें हुई है।
Previously, out of 87, Jammu had 37 seats and Kashmir had 46 seats. Amit Shah has just said that. Now, this was a major heartburn for Jammu that felt that Kashmir walked away with the lion's share of resources because they had more MLAs. Now, once the new bill is enacted into a law, the Jammu region will have 6 additional seats, while Kashmir will get 1 additional seat, which means Jammu will have 43 and Kashmir will have 47. Now, another big feature of the new bill is that 9 seats in the assembly will be reserved for people of the scheduled tribe. Earlier, there were none. But the biggest political game changer, the big talking point, are the 3 nominated members which the LG will now appoint. The LG, under the new bill, is empowered with nominating 2 members from the Kashmiri Pandit community and 1 person displaced from Pak-occupied Kashmir. Very, very importantly, these 3 nominated members, 2 Kashmiri Pandits, out of which 1 has to be a woman, and 1 from the POK displaced community, they have the right to vote in the assembly. Now, the opposition says this move gives the central government leverage via the LG to destabilize elected governments. The Home Minister, though, is saying this is righting a historical wrong.
2 बड़ी गलतियां जो पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू के प्रधानमंत्री काल में हुई, उनके लिए गए निर्णयों से हुई, इसके कारण सालों तक कश्मीर ने सहन करना पड़ा। एक सबसे बड़ी गलती, जब हमारी सेना जीत रही थी, पंजाब का एरिया आते ही सीज फायर कर दिया गया और पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर का जन्म हुआ। अगर सीज फायर 3 दिन लेट होता तो पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर भारत का हिस्सा।
The opposition, as expected, is not in line with the centre over the new bills. They fiercely protested it in the floor of the House and even staged a walkout from the Assembly before the bills were taken up for voting. The PDP is approaching the Supreme Court because they say that passing the bill in the Lok Sabha is illegal, unconstitutional, given the fact that along with the abrogation of Article 370, the Reorganization Bill of Jammu and Kashmir is currently being heard in the Supreme Court. So they're saying if the Supreme Court is already hearing the matter, where was the need for the government to introduce the bill and then get it passed in the Lok Sabha? Listen in.
ये सेकंड प्रोवाइजो ये है, जब धारा 3 में आप किसी भी स्टेट को रीऑर्गेनाइज करते हैं तो बगैर उसकी असेंबली को कॉन्फिडेंस में लिए आप वो रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन नहीं कर सकते। और इसीलिए मैं कह रहा हूं, जो आपने 5-6 अगस्त 2019 को किया, उसकी न्यू आपने दिसंबर 2018 में रखी थी। एक बात। दूसरा, जब आपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ऑर्डर 272 निकाला और 367(4) उसमें प्रावधान किया और कहा कि लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली का मतलब भारत की संसद है, आप ये भूल गए जब आपने पार्लियामेंट को जम्मू कश्मीर की असेंबली में तब्दील किया। तो जम्मू कश्मीर संविधान की धारा 147 है, which says that no bill can be entertained in the legislative assembly which changes the constitutional arrangements between Jammu and Kashmir and the Union of India.
जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों का हक है कि वो अपने वोट का इस्तेमाल करके अपने हुक्मरान का फैसला करें। हमें अब लगातार 2014 के बाद इस फैसले से महरूम रखा जा रहा है और ये एक अजीब सा फिक्स्ड मैच खेला जा रहा है। जब आप हुकूमत से बात करो, वो कहते हैं कि फैसला इलेक्शन कमीशन को करना है। जब आप इलेक्शन कमीशन से सवाल करते हो, वो कहते हैं कि हमें हुकूमत के साथ मशवरा करके इसमें कोई कदम उठाना होगा।
Sir, after the speech was over, the Amitabh Mattoo to say in the Parliament that the Kashmiri Pandits were displaced due to the vote banks and they are being neglected by the local politicians. How do you see this bill and the speech of the Home Minister in the Parliament?
See, as far as the bill is concerned, I haven't heard that what the Home Minister has said yet. But as far as the bill is concerned, we have opposed this bill. The reason why I am opposing this bill is that the nomination process has always been there in the erstwhile state also. You know, the political representation was already there. You know, the upper house of J&K Assembly, MLCs were earlier also being nominated. So there were Kashmiri Pandits, you know, who were being made MLCs and representatives in the government. You know, be it Professor Amitabh Mattoo was a cabinet rank political advisor to the former chief minister. BJP had nominated a couple of Kashmiri Pandits to the upper house. Congress or National Conference, you know, time to time have nominated MLCs. So the nomination was always there. Why we are opposing this is that we said that the political rights of Kashmiri Pandits, there was a need to preserve the political rights of Kashmiri Pandits. There is no doubt about it. And because there has been a huge gap of past 30, 32, 33 years that Kashmiri Pandits have been away from Kashmir. So this void has to be filled.
Now, you just heard Professor Amitabh Mattoo's name being taken. In fact, he joins us on the broadcast as well. Currently professor at JNU and also a former cabinet advisor to the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. Professor Mattoo, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror. Now, this is a slightly complicated issue for someone who has not tracked it. So before we get into a political tutu meme, I want to understand what exactly is the subject of debate here. Professor Mattoo, how do we understand what has happened in Parliament today? Do you see this as a balancing act that the government is doing between Jammu and Kashmir? Jammu had 37 seats in the assembly. It's now up to 43. Kashmir had 46, now up to 47. Is there a semblance of balance that the government was trying to create, or is it something else?
Shreya, I'll address all the issues systematically. First of all, I think I'll not go into the procedural issues because some of the people who spoke on your program or on the news file that you just showed suggested that it was before the abrogation of Article 370 and the reorganization of the state is a matter before the Supreme Court. So since it's sub judice, it's not right for the government to bring in another bill. That's an issue which is of judicial procedures and sanctity. That's something which I cannot comment on. But the substantive part of the bills is really three amendments of the Principal Act of 2019, which was the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019. First is an amendment, as you pointed out, in subsection 3 of that Principal Act, by which the number of seats in the J&K Assembly has been raised from 83 to 90, of which 7 will be reserved for scheduled castes and 9 for scheduled tribes. There were none in the Principal Act earlier, seats reserved for scheduled tribes. So that is a new entry into the number which has been increased. And also, the increase has been on the basis of what was constituted, what was the Delimitation Commission constituted. Of course, opposition parties will accuse the BJP and the government of gerrymandering, but that often happens whenever there's any reorganization. Ultimately, I think the strength and robustness of Indian democracy suggests that no matter how you delimit constituencies or increase their number, voters will vote on the basis of performance and governance. The second part is the one which has really attracted the most attention, which is after sections 15 of the Principal Act, you will have the following addition, which is reserving 2 seats for Kashmiri migrants, and one of whom will be a woman. Now, the definition of migrants is provided on the basis of what was an earlier act passed by the State Assembly, but says the explanation in this bill says that the primary people who migrated were Kashmiri Hindus and Pandits, but included Sikhs and Muslims as well.
Correct.
So although we are presuming that these are seats reserved for Kashmiri Pandits, in terms of the legal bill itself, it recognizes that apart from Pandits, there were other Kashmiri Hindus, but also includes Sikhs and Muslims. So while I think in some ways giving these 2 seats to Kashmiri Pandits would provide the kind of incentives to the Pandits to go back, to start a dialogue with the Kashmiri Muslims, to politically mainstream themselves and feel empowered, there is nothing ipso facto within the bill itself which suggests that these are only going to be nominated from within the Kashmiri Pandit community. The final amendment is really the nomination of displaced persons from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir through either because they were felt disturbed or because they were subject to violence. And from 47 till 71, till the Bangladesh war, anyone who was displaced, there'll be one person nominated by the Lieutenant Governor. Clearly, I think these nominations should be made by the state government, by the Lieutenant Governor on the advice of the state government. The more substantive point really is, are these moves now in anticipation of fresh elections in the state? Because that is what really our focus should be, that there are state elections, that democracy is returned to the state, because no matter how good Lieutenant Governor's rule may be, ultimately a grassroots democracy as well as a democracy run by elected leaders is much better. That goes to the whole fundamental idea of India. And the second part is really whether the statehood, as the Home Minister has assured the Parliament on a separate earlier occasion, will be restored to J&K. So frankly, in terms of the pure legality of these amendments, I see nothing per se wrong. In fact, I would say progressive, because it includes a reservation for scheduled tribes, it includes people from the displaced community, but it also is gender sensitive, includes women. and includes people who have been displaced from POK. Now, as I said, you can attribute motives, you can attribute all sorts of conspiracies, but if you were to look at the law and read it in not a complete political vacuum, but in a at least bereft of the agenda that people might attribute to it, there's nothing wrong that I find in this law.
Okay, the PDP in any case, Professor Mattu, has already said we are knocking the doors of the Supreme Court over this one. Then can I ask you two questions that come to my mind? Because the opposition is already alleging badmashi. So let me ask you that one question that the opposition has been raising. They are saying the fact is that the 3 nominated members will not be nominated by the government that has been chosen by the people of Jammu and Kashmir, but by the LG who has been appointed by the centre. This, in a way, is the centre's badmashi, for the want of a better word, to try and destabilize elected governments in Jammu and Kashmir. Is that fear real or is it imagined?
I mean, there is obviously the reality that if you are nominated by someone, you'll owe your allegiance to that person for some of the time. But most people, I've realized, have their own agency after a certain amount of time. One is eternally grateful to the powers that be. But more importantly, if there is a state government, usually the LG, or if there is a governor, then he would act on the advice of the state government. For instance, the nominations to the Legislative Council were made by the Chief Minister, and the governor would merely appoint them under his own name. So the state government, whoever was a part of the ruling dispensation, did get that additional 2 numbers. Similarly, within Indian Parliament, people forget that there's a provision to nominate members of the Anglo-Indian community, who are again nominated by the government. I don't think 2 members from the migrant community or one member from the PAK displaced community is going to make such a substantive difference. Of course, if it comes to the wire, then it may make a difference, but we should not work on a worst case analysis. We should assume that these are going to be, as has often been the case, people who are beyond partisan politics, people who have a standing and have a integrity and speak for the community rather than for any kind of partisan agenda. That's the hope. That's the normative framework within which the Constitution was created. And I hope that when these reservations happen or when these nominations happen, that those fundamental values that the founders of the Constitution had for us will be respected.
Professor Mattu, can I then ask you, and you said, the one big change is the inclusion of SC/ST seats that are reserved for the SC and ST community, 7+9. Can I ask you, since you know Jammu and Kashmir's landscape much better than us, where these seats will fall? Will they fall in Jammu or will they fall in Kashmir? Because they are included in the 90.
Yeah, the scheduled castes, it would be primarily from Jammu, but there are scheduled castes, I would imagine, in Kashmir. I can't name any large communities immediately, but scheduled tribes are essentially Gujars, Bakarwals, and the Pahadis are included. The Pahadis who are spread over Jammu and Kashmir, and certainly the Gujars and Bakarwals, if we are going to get down to primordial factors, are all Muslims. The Pahadis are divided between those Hindus and Muslims who speak the Pahadi language. But scheduled castes, primarily, I would imagine, and again, I wouldn't take a bet on this. And while I know the landscape, I don't know it in minutiae, or the kind of minutiae right now, would primarily be within the Jammu region.
Okay, then can I ask you finally, then is the opposition's fear just...
Yeah, see,
Go ahead, Professor Mattu.
Every reorganization, every amendment to the Representation of People's Act does invite criticism. And obviously, a ruling party, a ruling dispensation will try and gerrymander it in a way, not gerrymander, but at least help to reorganize it in a way which they think will address their core constituency. But basis of understanding Indian constitution and Indian electoral politics, you realize that these categories are not frozen in time, that what you think today is your core constituency will change the next day. You begin to see this in Jammu. The manner in which they have voted successfully over the last 75 years makes you understand that nothing is certain in Jammu and Kashmir as it is uncertain in the rest of India.
All right. Professor Mattoo, thank you very much for your time here on Mirana. It was very important for us viewers to understand what exactly happened in Parliament today and why it has become the subject of such a big debate, and whether some of the controversies that are being raised, some of the talking points that are being raised by the opposition, if there's any merit to it. Professor Mattoo, we thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.